do you go from being a struggling kid out of college to being a top-rated and top-selling realtor in the Palm Beaches in less than 10 years? Well, stay right here on this edition of Erizo TV, where my friend Greg Forrest is going to tell you all about it. Isn't that right, Don Gregorio?
That's right, Don Elliot.
Greg, it's so good to see you. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. It's truly an honor and a privilege to be in your presence today.
And I could not be more excited to be here with you because I know that you have a career that many people will want to know about, because in a very short period of time, you converted a kid from a little town of Stuart to Greg Forrest, one of the top-rated realtors and top-selling realtors in the area. Tell me, what is the secret to the success, Greg?
So really the secret kind of goes back to my upbringing. And I know we've talked about this a little bit, Elliot, but I was an athlete. So I grew up, at a very young age, I was a golfer. And so fast forward, I became a really good golfer. I was very highly recruited. I had all these scholarships. I played golf on a full scholarship at UCF in Orlando, University of Central Florida, go Knights. And, basically turned pro, a couple years pro, but I always had some difficulty with my back and my hips and all these things. I had these challenging times of injury where you cannot perform at your highest ability. And it's the worst feeling in the world when you're limited that way. So I think my persistence and drive to be great comes from those roots of the daily grind, the practicing every day, showing up at the golf course, putting in the hours, putting in the time, even though maybe some days I didn't feel like it or I didn't legit feel like it because my body was aching. I sometimes felt like I was an 80-year-old in a 20-year-old body, but some people just struggle with injuries, and I did. Thankfully I'm on the mend and I'm kind of feeling better. But I think to go from that point between now and then was, there's a book called Peaks and Valleys. I recommend anyone out there to read this book. But I was on a peak and then I went down to a valley of just uncertainty, not knowing what my career would be. And so to come from that, I just honestly was watching TV shows and I was like, wow, like these real estate agents are making a lot of money. And my goal was to make money playing golf. So, and looking back, I think that like part of my, I never wanted to get into real estate until about 6 months before I got in, because I was always wanting to be an athlete. I wanted to be a pro athlete. And so to come to where I am now, I look back and I'm like, I feel like I'm just getting started, honestly. Like we've kind of made it, but we haven't. Like I have bigger aspirations. And so that's a little context for everyone out there, is that I've already kind of had a peak and I've had a valley and I'm kind of climbing up the mountain again.
That sounds outstanding. I've played golf with you, so I know how. I know that I've learned a few.
The rounds are few and far between. I'm so busy, but we definitely something we need to do more together, and also for my business.
So tell me, at what point in your life did you know that you were going to become a real estate person, and when did you discover that you had the magnificent design and building abilities that you have? Because you were building my home when I met you.
That's right, you did. You bought one of the homes I designed, and you weren't even looking in that area. You're just like, I love this home. It's a little sanctuary in this area. Honestly, when I quit, or when I had to walk away from golf, I didn't quit because I didn't want to quit. I had to walk away. My dad was like, son, you need to get a job, so I got a job selling shoes at Nordstrom. I talked to a buddy of mine, and he was like, oh, you make good money here, and da-da-da. And I look back, and it's ironic because it's nothing compared to the money I make now, but I learned to kind of, I went from this pro athlete to literally selling women's shoes. Like it was quite humbling for me, but I got good suits out of it. I worked at Nordstrom, and they definitely want you dressed up. And so I learned how to kind of present myself, and I grew up in the country club environments of very exclusive clubs, so that was something that I already kind of knew. But it wasn't until about 3 months into that I met a good friend of mine, and we still talk to this day, and hopefully going to do more business with him. But he just kind of like he kind of educated me about real estate, and I started watching those TV shows, and I started to kind of think, man, I could do this. And then looking back, like I always think about like the golf I played. I traveled all over the country and the world, even to other countries. I would always notice the real estate. Like I never thought I would do anything with it, but I always had an eye for it. And I always was like looking at backyards on the green or whatever, and just kind of like, wow, like that looks like a really cool setup or whatever. So I kind of had it, but didn't know I had it. I always say I got an A in art, but I'm not an artist. I just have an eye for it. And I've kind of learned how to take something really that's more like a vision and turn it into reality. So when we work with buyers, I'm able to sort of be like, no. Have you thought about it this way, right? Like you see this now, but let me show you what this could look like. And I think it gives people the comfort that, hey, I've got the people to take care of you. I've got the people that can build you this and build you that and make it so that home is really where the heart is. But it also gives people a sense of calm. And I think in our world today, right, even your name of the show is like, it's fast and fun. But I think people need to take a breather and go to their house as their sanctuary. And so that's kind of what I try to emulate my business on is, hey, how can I serve you the best? But also, hey, let's create like a really peaceful place for you.
That is something that I think it comes with you. I think it's a DNA kind of thing,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it's God-given. I think it's like something that I just feel like I have in me. And so for a seller too, I'm able to like bring to life the house, like, yes, your job is to, my job is to sell this house for top dollar, but it's not being afraid to be like, you know what, I know you think that this is great and it's great for you, but I want to show you what's great for top dollar. And so like I have that ability, I think, to kind of cut through, get to the heart of maybe what they thought wasn't something that was an issue, but in reality it's going to make, the sale happen. So like that's my MO. And I think, when I work with buyers and sellers, it's totally different. With a buyer, I'm trying to get as much info out of that particular house or seller so that I can present it to them. And with the seller, I'm really trying to give away the least amount of info so that the buyer has to guess and maybe come up in price, because who knows, this house might be gone tomorrow. So
yeah, you have to play those cards carefully.
You got to read the room.
You got to read
the room. And that's something I learned how to do, but I was not a good room reader earlier in my career or even my life. I mean, I remember a story back when I used to caddy, because I was a golfer, but I got a job at a really high-end club, and I told one of the richer guys that were at the club, I gave him advice, but it was unsolicited. He didn't ask me for it. And he looked at me after he hit the ball in the water, mad, and here I am, this kid that thinks, he's the greatest golfer ever, right? This young punk. But, he told me something. He said, never give advice unless you're asked of it. And I really feel like when I present a home, I'm not going to give advice unless they ask. And I think people love to feel that sense of like, okay, yeah, I can like make myself at home here, and like Greg's not going to push me.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
Greg, let's talk a little bit about exciting moments in your career, because I know that there are many. How about if you'd share with us the most exciting trip you have ever made in your career?
So I went to Mallorca, and it was the Rafael Nadal Sotheby's Golf Challenge. Rafa's a tennis player, but he puts on a golf tournament, and so it was a great networking event. It was so much fun. Like we got to meet Rafa. I got to meet all these executives from all over the CEO of Sotheby's, and it was just such a fun experience to just go there and kind of show off a little bit. I won the long drive.
Who's the most amazing golfer you have played with?
Oh, that's a great question. I grew up playing with a lot of guys that have won on tour. Even a guy yesterday that almost won in the Players Championship, Brian Harman. He was an old, friend that I played with. I played with U.S. Open winners Webb Simpson. I played with Billy Horschel, FedEx Cup champion, Dustin Johnson, all these guys that I competed against in college. So I have to name a few because I never got to play with Tiger, but maybe one day. But Tiger was somebody that I emulated and wanted to be like, because he was just a killer.
Hey, Tiger, we have a message for you. Don Gregorio would like to have a visit with you.
I would.
You have always given me the impression to be very comfortable in your skin, Greg.
Yeah.
Very comfortable with who you are. You're very original. And how did that come about?
My confidence is it's been trained, it's been developed. You go through the fire to kind of come out sparkly, right? Like a diamond.
I wanted to ask you a couple fun things that
Sure.
that people might enjoy listening to. How about a private airplane ride somewhere? Tell me about some of your exciting trips that you take on.
I think the most fun one was maybe a couple years back. We flew to the Masters right out of Palm Beach. 12 guys, all builders, developers, architects, real estate. Like, it was a great group of guys, and that was super awesome. I mean, to
What
kind
a
of
bonding experience.
Oh, I mean, we still have a group. I still talk to those guys today, and it was one of those things where, like, hey, this is an investment, right? I'm investing in this trip to therefore reap the benefits of, it's like, because we went on the trip, now that we have that in common, it kind of opens the door to, like, business, for business to flow.
Let's turn the page a little bit and talk to the new generation, the kids that are right now starting college and thinking that
Sure.
they one day might have a career in real estate.
The two most important things are having really confidence and drive. Like, when I started in real estate, I put on the nicest suit I owned and just walked into offices and said, "Who's your best agent? I want to work for them. I want to start as their assistant." Like, I didn't want to mess up with my friends. I wanted to mess up with people I didn't know. I wanted to learn from somebody great and maybe make a few mistakes with people that, he introduced me to, not my friends. And so I took that approach to work on a team. But I think planning out your day, time blocking, like understanding that as an entrepreneur, right, like, you make your own schedule, but you also struggle with making your own schedule because people are lazy by nature, and we don't like to stick to structure.
Yeah.
Humans are very experiential and moody, and so you got to plan your day. You got to make a schedule, stick to it.
Can you tell me a little bit about your vision on what's happening with the real estate market? Because the short-term rental, we're in the era of
Yeah.
short-term rentals. People used to own homes in Palm Beach, and they had their home in Palm Beach that was empty for 8 months. A lot of people are transitioning to making their homes make them money while they're away. Do you see that increasing and growing?
Yeah, so we had this rise, right, the last decade of, like, the Airbnb, VRBO world. And a real estate being an experiential asset, I believe, is the greatest asset you can own. It's a scarcity asset, too. God only made so much land. He's not making it anymore. So it's kind of like Bitcoin. It's, an asset that there's only so much land to build unless we start building in space. I don't know what Elon Musk is up to these days. But, and I think the experiences now have broadened. So you can live in it as your primary, you can have it as a secondary, a vacation, you can rent it out, right? You can give other people the opportunity to experience your home, which I think is just great. I mean, it's kind of the essence of, like, true hospitality, right? I've learned that the more hospitable you are in your own home, really, it kind of defines you as a person. And so I think having these roads of experiences out of the asset, right? You could borrow against it. There's so many different things that you can do to add to, the experience. And I think that this area being a resort type market, it's almost like we've really discovered everything in the world. Like, nothing is really uncovered and undiscovered. So Palm Beach and the Palm Beaches is a very desirable area. So it's not like we're not really in the, as humans, we're always trying to think, oh, what's better? There could be something better. There ain't much better than where we live, tropical waters, beautiful breezes, beautiful architecture, amazing homes, lifestyle, restaurants, the best food, all of these things. I sound like a realtor, but
The waterways are just phenomenal,
yeah,
too.
I mean,
know?
you're basically in the Bahamas on a beautiful day.
Yes.
When the wind is right and the sun is right, it feels like you're in the Bahamas, which people envy that, and I think it's just a great area to have all those avenues.
I
Real
see
estate, yeah.
I see the upgrades being made on the marinas and so many exciting things, and people are saying that Palm Beach is the next Monaco, the Monaco of the Americas. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is being taped right during the boat show week, and I was just driving to work today, and there was hundreds, maybe thousands of yachts parked, and I looked back, and I legit thought I was in, like, Mallorca or Monaco. What a cool sight to see all these yachts in front of our downtown. We just revamped our town marina. It's one of the best, I think, in the country as far as a town-owned marina. I mean, it's fascinating how many large yachts are kept there, and we're probably not like a Miami or Lauderdale because we're more boutique, but the boutique factor is it's less busy, it's a little more calming.
What would be your message to the younger generation that's coming up in this world that we live in with social media and the text message generation, running too fast at times? What would be your advice to a young person that wants to grow up and become a business person in the real estate market?
I'm definitely somebody that, being a former athlete, I think working out, like moving your body every day. It's important to move your body, whether it's for 10 minutes or an hour, just move your body. You know, the cold plunge is great. It lowers your heart rate. It calms you down.
You cold plunging? Great.
Yeah, I do. And I was a chicken when I started, maybe 30 seconds. But I learned that thinking about your breathing, I do a box breathe, a 5-second in, 5-second hold, 5 seconds out, 5-second hold. And if you do 3 breaths, you just did a minute. So I'm like, okay, I can breathe 15 times, and that's all I do. I just breathe 15 times, and I'm in it for 5 minutes. It's easy.
Yeah, my son Seb got me into cold plunging, and I've been
your
doing,
son, he would.
Yeah, and I love it. I just love it.
Your son he's like a little Zeus. I mean, the kid is like a sculptor. But you know, I think exercise. I think also something that I've really tried to stick to is work-life balance. And so I do not believe in, like, why would you want to work all the time? Like, I think it's just people that need that constant stimulation and they can't slow down. And then sadly, they might have issues later in life, right? But I think just really quick to end with this, you break out your day in 3/8, right? You got 8 great hours of sleep, 8 focused hours at work, and then 8 hours to do whatever you want, you know, and spend time with you, your family. But I think 8, 8, and 8 every day, if you broke your day up like that, you would be successful.
I think getting back to basics too
Yes.
is something that can be very important. I am a reader, as you know, I'm a writer, but writers are typically readers,
Right.
and I believe that the refuge that I find in reading a book, it takes me away from my, from the rat race. It takes me
Right.
away from the text message. It
Yep.
takes me away. Another thing I've heard from my son actually is that don't touch your phone for an hour when you wake up.
Right.
Do things for yourself.
Yeah.
So
I mean, just to think, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, we never had these things, right? And we never really knew where people were. I mean, it was always the bikes in front of the yard. Oh, everyone's there, you know? And now it's, where people are like, I just flipped a coin, or I just had a coffee, and we're documenting. And it's great, but like, it's a lot of stimulation. I think that it's important to de-stimulate yourself.
Greg, I'm possibly 25 or 30 years ahead of you in age, but what would you like for an interview in 25 or 30 years with Greg Forrest to say about Greg Forrest's legacy?
In this point in my life, the most interesting people that I meet are interested, right? Interesting people are always interested in things, and they're curious, right? Something that I think you emulate well is that you're always asking me questions. You're curious about things. You're a very interesting person, LU, but because you're interested, right? Mm-hmm. So I think I want to be known as somebody that people had a great experience to be around, a great friend, hopefully a great father, great single. For all you Latinas out there, can I say that?
We currently single them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but it's just one of those things where, yeah. I mean, meaning I'm not married, mm-hmm. And so it's just, yeah. I think I just want to be known as like, he did things well, and he left a legacy. He loved people. I mean, those are the things I think I want to be known for. Oh yeah.
Greg, I want to thank you for joining me. I brought a signed copy of my book.
Amazing.
That I wanted to give to you. As you know, I during COVID I took a couple of years sabbatical, and I want to give you a copy of.
Thank you for that. That's
my
awesome.
book. Yeah, as you know, Unclipped Wings is the story of an unexpected life, the American dream that I got to live, as is the life of my guest today, Mr. Greg Forrest, top-rated, top-selling realtor in the Palm Beaches, who gifted us today with some of the wisdom and knowledge behind his magic in taking care of clients selling real estate in the Palm Beaches. I want to thank you, Greg, for being here with us.
It's been an honor.
I look forward to our next meeting. We're going to do this again, and I'm going to check up on you and see how things are going in Tiger Woods. You now know that Don Gregorio in Palm Beach is looking forward to playing with you, and he's got a trick or two that you may not be aware of, but that he's used before, and he guarantees me that he'll make it possible. So, Greg, thank you so much.
Thank you, Don Elio.
Thank you so much, Greg. Muchas gracias. I should say
Muchas
muchas
gracias.
gracias.